The church's view of men is now like a Homer Simpson. He doesn't know much theologically, doesn't know much about God, doesn't know much about church, you know.
Where he prays before the soccer game, and then he gets mad at the other guy praying. He says, too late, we prayed first.
Yeah. That's what men, but that's so true.
I know.
That's so true. That's what I feel like the world views men in church as some like, I prayed first, I got it in first.
Right.
Hi, I'm Parker.
And I'm Tim.
And this is the Rage Podcast, where today we are going to do what the rest of society does and bash men.
I didn't agree to that.
We're talking, obviously, we're coming from a church perspective.
Yes.
And the church kind of has some problems in the male department. If that's
that was the most politically correct way of saying anything I've ever heard. I'm kind of ashamed of you. Yes. Yeah.
But I think it's true. And Tim, we haven't had any kind of meeting prior to this, but I see a problem in the church where a lot of men just either don't even show up on a Sunday morning or absolutely are terrified to get involved.
Yeah.
So would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I think we're going to talk about a couple of reasons for this throughout the course of this conversation. But I was fortunate enough, when I grew up, back in the pre-dawn era, my dad was very involved in the church. In fact, my dad was the reason we went to church. Not that my mom was opposed to it at all, but dad is the one who kind of took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and he was the reason we went to church. And again, I'm not saying my mom was opposed to it. It's just dad was sort of the leader there, and I can remember him having conversations with us and praying with my sister and I and things like that. I thought that was how it was done growing up. I'm finding out, though, over the last, multiple decades of doing this, that I was the exception, not the rule. So I guess part of that is to say it's not really surprising I ended up where I did with an example like that.
Yeah.
So, but that's unfortunate because, I have no way to know, but I wonder what my faith would be today had my dad not taken the lead like that and kind of, showed the way. I don't know. Yeah. It would have been very different.
Like, I think I see, I'm going to go through a demographic of just St. Mary's because that's where both of our churches are located. Yeah. But a lot of the churches here in town have women's ministries. And again, we're not bashing women by any means.
Heavens no.
Because they're doing a good job at everything that they're doing.
Yep.
Women's ministries are thriving. Wayne Street has a women's ministry. Yeah. I met here last night.
Yeah, and it was a full house.
Yeah. Parking lot was full and everything. And I'm sure, I know Jess and I know some of the ladies that go to that. They're getting great things out of it. And that's, I love that. But then I can't help but realize, well, where is all the men? What are we offering the men? And again, I'm not saying this as we as in Wayne Street, but we as the Church Universal, because this isn't just a problem here at Wayne Street.
And yes, which is very true. Yes.
And I think it's because, especially here in America, is where I see this problem really occurring a lot at, is because the church has absorbed or kind of pasted on this feminine quality in a way.
Well, and part of that came out of the I'm going to say the 1960s, because we could rip on the 1960s because neither of us were alive in the 1960s, but I think one of the things I can remember early in my career, I had some conversations with some men, and they would always complain the new sanctuary designs at that time, and any of you who were in the church at that time probably will know what I'm talking about. Everybody wanted their sanctuary to look like their living room. Padded pews, decorative flowers, all this kind of stuff. And we started to get away from what sanctuaries looked like prior to that, which again, some of them were hideous. But I think I go over to like Maria Stein and look at the stuff over there, and I know Parker's not big on that, but it is beautiful. You got to give it that. Come on, Parker.
No comment.
No comment. All right, but I think it's beautiful. And one of the churches, in fact, we're looking out the window here at the Lutheran church across the street.
That's a beautiful church.
Beautiful sanctuary. But I got to tell you, it does not look like a living room. And and I say props to them for that because their sanctuary is so good. Again, not ripping on ours. Ours is great.
That's a valid point about what you said of kind of how maybe that kind of kicked some men out because it didn't feel as rigid as maybe some of us would like our church services to be.
It wasn't venturesome anymore. It was homey. And again, I'm not saying that as a negative. That's just how it was. It was portrayed.
And I think another thing that really, this is me growing up, as going to be a 20-year-old in, a couple months. I see it in our worship music.
I agree with that.
If you get on a Christian radio station, a lot of the music, some of the songs, not a lot, I'm not going to say a lot, but there's some songs that literally sounds like it's a boyfriend-girlfriend song that's supposed to be a worship song to Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to throw, I will throw, maybe one name out of there. But,
All right, do it.
But it's a song who's by Lauren Daigle, who music's good and all these things. I'm not saying I don't like the song, but maybe some of the theological implements of it could be off. But I will
We could do a whole podcast on bad theology and music.
I Will Rescue You is one of the songs. I like the song. Don't get me wrong; it's a good song, but it sounds like I'm a teenage girl looking for the love of my life.
Yeah.
Who's going to sweep down and rescue me.
That's not going to appeal to a man because we want to be the rescuer, not the rescue.
Yes.
Now, theologically, that's not how it works. We get that. But I think the way men are wired, we want to go out and conquer and rescue and set things right,
all
protect.
These things, yep.
And, the church looks to God for that. And again, please don't hear us ripping on that.
Yeah, that's...
We know that's how it is and how it should be. But the question becomes that is sort of a thing that is not going to appeal to men across the board.
Yes, and so and that's the big thing. I will get a little bit later on once we kind of close. I think we're going to talk a little bit about the need for that kind of charismatic and emotional side of church.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of us have in the modern day and age church. We have taken that and run with it. And we've had good success with it in a lot of cases, but we also ran a lot of the men out of the church by going into the emotional, charismatic, and kind of side of that, which is needed. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, there's
the happy balance of everything.
Absolutely, there is biblical precedent for what we're talking about here, in that in Revelation the church is called the bride of Christ. So I mean, there's definitely biblical precedent to that. But one of the things that has left us with is a very, very important institution that may not be naturally wired to appeal to men. It should, and how we present it and what we do with it is going to matter. But we're going to have to be intentional about some of that stuff.
I just did a full circle, Tim.
Full circle.
What was the book I was reading just a little bit ago?
The Book of Resolutions.
So another reason I think some men got ran out of the church is because the church hated men for a very long time.
Yeah, Parker is now preaching the truth.
I have an example here. That's a bad example. No, all right. Say you're talking to some friends and someone says, "Have you heard about, the things going on in this household?" All right, say the Miller Smith, one of the basic last name households, right? In that household, have you heard about what's going on there? And someone's like, "Oh, well, was there an affair? Was there some cheating going on or something like that?" And what's the first thing everyone thinks of? Well, the man obviously cheated. What did the man do?
What he do?
And because of that, so the church started, just absolutely bash men. All right. Do note here. Of course, I'm not condoning idolatry. I'm not doing that.
Yes. We're at the Rage Podcast. We'll be very clear about that.
I'm not endorsing that, but I'm also saying that when you look at a lot of sins, some of the big sins, we don't picture women committing them. We picture men. Things such as idolatry, lust, anger, murder.
Yeah.
Most of the times that's going to pop in your head is a man who's committing those things.
Yeah. And in fact, it's so noteworthy when a woman does them, it becomes a headline. Because we're like, oh my word, really? But when the man does it, we're like, So the church for a while noticed that, again, we all struggle with sin, but men kind of became the mascot or the poster child of sin, of doing wrongs and all those things, which is not good for many reasons, so
right?
Now you got an organization that doesn't naturally appeal to men, who they come to and it doesn't resonate with them. They walk into an environment that may not be as comfortable for them as they want, and the first thing they're going to hear is how bad you are.
Yeah, you men.
Yeah, your wife brought you here so we can straighten you out, and that's again, that doesn't happen here at Wayne Street. That doesn't happen in Walnut Grove, but it has happened.
It happens. It does.
Parker and I have both been in those meetings where I'm like, I'm going to die of cringe before this is over.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so as I was reading the Book of Resolution, there's a lot of things in there that this is coming through my male eyes, it just irritated me.
I can't believe you've worked that into this. That's
Isn't
amazing.
it crazy how I did it?
Yeah. Parker's a beast at this. So
But anyways, so another big problem that exists in the universal church all around the world is the fact that kind of men have become the ones that are just naturally viewed as the lost and the fallen, and women have kind of taken on the role. Now
let's not kid ourselves. The culture has been reinforcing that. So has Hollywood.
Yes.
Yeah. Every movie, if there's a man and a woman, a lead, you know how it's going to be. The man's going to be a bumbling idiot, and the woman's going to know everything and be perfect.
Exactly.
Like many of the modern movies out there that are terrible.
And so because the church has completely destroyed the biblical view of manhood, because that's what happened there. When they took man as being this natural fallen creature that needs so much help, and he's just like this rough beast that needs tamed, since that's kind of the mission that the church took on for a little while in history, and destroyed the biblical view of manhood, all of us have become like Homer Simpson. The church's view of men is now like a Homer Simpson. He doesn't know much theologically, doesn't know much about God, doesn't know much about church,
Where he prays before the soccer game, and then he gets mad at the other guy praying and says, too late, we prayed first.
But that's so true.
I know.
That's so true. That's what I feel like the world views men in church as some like, I prayed first, I got it in first. Right. I mean, it irritates me a lot, but men, we also kind of brought that on ourselves.
Yeah, we did.
Because now it's time for us to dig ourselves out of this hole that we have, I would say, was halfway dug for us. We did the rest of the digging, and we
fell in the hole, and we said, well, we got to get out of this, so we started digging.
Yes. Our digging was leaving the church.
Yeah.
So we were thrown in the hole, and what we did is we dug our way out of that toxic environment.
Yeah, I agree with you, Parker, and I think one of the things that we need to bring back is the role of men in the church. And again, I know I have to say this. This is not to discount women's roles in churches and how important those are as teachers and preachers and people who are doing great work and sending cards and doing all the caring ministries and things. Women are so much better than that than men are. And it's great to do that. But, there are still some mission projects, some mentoring things that men could make a huge difference on with kids today that we also could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah.
But there's also some work around town and mowing yards. In fact, we're going to have a group here. Hopefully, the Mother Nature will help us out on that one. And we're here mowing the yard and doing things like that because that is men being men, getting stuff done. And I think when we can harness that rather than work against it, we're going to be much more successful.
Yes. Yeah. So men, we have this problem, and now we're at a critical age where we have realized that this problem exists, because I think it's becoming very relevant to every church.
Yes, that is 100%.
That men, they're just not coming to church on Sunday mornings, not getting involved, and so forth. The problem is serious.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are we going to do to fix the problem? What do we have? And I say it's 3 simple steps. All right. This was me being a man, what I think would work, and I think hopefully other men that watch this episode might agree as well. The 3 things I found that are needed to kind of draw back in men and keep men strong and give them that biblical definition of manhood is preach and teach logic. Every once in a while, yes, the messages of hope and all those things that are equally needed, valid messages, the charismatic and emotional ones, good. They have their place. They do. But the need for the logical sermons, the biblical defense of
how to make sense of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
We just talked about the resurrection. We had that, and there's a lot of men I know out there that don't entirely grasp the concept. We're not supposed to grasp it entirely.
Yeah.
But at least we can have, give some meat, a little bit more logic and how we can define.
Well, there has to be
defend.
enough comprehension there to prevent it from being rejected out of hand. And sometimes when we get to these touchy-feely, more kind of approach to things, it gets very difficult to fight your way through that to figure out what's going on. And we men who can only do one thing at a time, if we're going to sit in church and the pastor doesn't seem like he or she knows where they're going with the sermon, you're going to lose men in a nanosecond. And I think that's what Parker's doing, or talking about here, is a logical flow to the sermon. It's clear. It brings in some history and it brings in some concrete stuff, because there are concrete things you could talk about in faith.
Yes.
Not all of it, because there are some parts we have to take on faith because that's what it's called. But at the end of the day, if we can't take on that and give them something concrete to think about, even if they disagree with it, that's okay. Because it allows us to think through that and not just have an experience, but actually be able to have a takeaway.
If men could at least get the understanding of why they disagree about what a pastor said, that's better than where we're at.
That's success, actually.
So teach and preach logically. Give some of those things like church history. How we got here today. What it was. The history of certain things, because the history is very concrete in things such as that. Another thing I said is have something for men to do.
Yes, the importance of that cannot be overstated.
we need something
And
to
something to do is not sitting in a room and saying, "I feel sad."
Yes. Yeah. You know, like
men will not come out for that.
Yeah, have something to do. I know of some churches here in town that have at least men's ministries. I mean, I know several of them that don't, but a couple of them that what they do, they have like woodworking shops in their church. And I was like, that's the best way for men's ministries to work.
And if you can have men showing younger boys how to do things, man, you are just killing it at that point. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Because that's what's missing is everything's so hands off because everything's on a screen or on our TV or whatever. And to get men doing things with their hands, woodworking or yard mowing or carrying boxes or whatever it is, where you can get men setting an example without speaking to younger men and younger boys, that is the home run right there.
And so this can be some simple examples, all right? So say you wanted to start up a men's ministry, which again, here at Wayne Street, I would love for us to start up a men's ministry. So if you're men here at Wayne Street, get your stuff togetger. But anyways, what would it be like? Obviously, there should be some form of teaching and practice, right? Because we need to learn. We need to be studying this.
Huge.
But application is huge. But again, studying certain things, getting some of the logic of the faith instead of being the Homer Simpson type. Because Homer Simpson can certainly go out and mow the yard, but what makes the difference of a men's ministry is understanding ministry.
Well, understanding why mowing the yard matters in the greater scheme of building the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
And it does if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. So exactly. There needs to be some teaching element, all right?
Yeah.
Nothing like an hour-long class or anything.
Right.
But a teaching element, giving some form of logical reason or, this minute in church history, whatever it looks like. Then go out and find someone in the church who needs to put up a bunch of pictures, right? Just something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Mow someone's grass. Plant flowers
carry
for
out
them.
some trash. Clean out a garage.
Power wash a house. I mean, whatever it is, do. But at the end of the day, do something. Do a matter of something. In the church right now, we're in the season of mowing. Bring your mower and mow one of the various little boulevards we have around our block.
Yes, anytime. Just come by and just start mowing. It'd be great.
Bring your kids and everything else, and that's that. But so doing this kind of task just to even get men back here. Those tasks are very important. Taking care of the church yard. Planting flowers, trimming the bushes and trees and everything else.
I think that resonates with us when we can take something and do something and improve it, and that's great. And that actually leads into your third point.
Yes.
So go ahead.
And so the last point that I made is give men something to protect. This one, being a church, is easy. We give men plenty of things to protect from. I mean, it's in our blood. We are natural protectors, right? It's in our blood. We need something to protect.
And another word for protect is to preserve.
Yes, preserve,
again,
protect.
That's kind of what we're talking about: preserving tradition, preserving teaching, preserving theology, preserving all these different things. And if we can get men doing that, men do that really well, and they enjoy that kind of thing. Again, I'm not saying be stuck in the past. But I mean to say there are standards and there are expectations that should translate from every generation. And men are the ones who can be the standard bearers in that. Again, taking nothing from women in that role because they need to do it too. But the idea that to turn men loose on something like that, to teach things that my dad taught me. My dad took me to church. I became a pastor. What a shock. You know, I mean, all I did was I did what my dad modeled for me. Now I have paid a whole lot more money for education than he ever had, but he was equally as smart as I was and knew just as much of it as I knew. I just have, pieces of paper I paid a bunch of money for. That's the only real difference here. But he modeled that for me and I followed in his footsteps and here I am. And I can't discount that. All men need to be doing that. Whether you have children, if you don't have biological children, which I happen to not, but there are plenty of kids in my church who need to see it modeled.
But there's also plenty more things to protect, all right?
Absolutely.
This church, Wayne Street, all right, we're in a very, going to be entering into a very, how do I want to say it? Kind of vulnerable stage in life.
Yeah.
And I mean, again.
Oh, you mean through the disaffiliation?
Through the disaffiliation, everything that we just done.
Yeah.
We need some people to step up and grab the handles.
And we have to make decisions about this is something we want to preserve. Clearly, this is something not. And those decisions need to be made. And then they need to be adhered to.
Yeah. So stepping up to the plate and grabbing the reins and protecting your church,
leaders, absolutely,
being leader in your church. Going out and protecting your community from certain things right now. There's tons of examples we have, and I'm just thinking of one example. The middle school here, we have a great school system, but they just put out all of their history curriculum. They told people, come and review our history curriculum, so you can't say, well, I don't know what you're teaching my kid. We're giving you the curriculum. Go and look it over.
But and by going to look it over, not only does that say I'm going to go find out so that I know, it also says to the school, I care.
Yeah.
And that's almost as an important message as going to see what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's in our blood to have that desire to protect and as Tim has said many times, to kind of as an analogy to the word preserve as well. Preserve your church, protect your church,
and your family and your community and your kids' baseball team and all these traditions and things that we all know are important. But, we need to see men preserving these things because, again, I am living proof of what we're talking about here. And I that cannot be overstated. And I'm worried that by losing so many men out of the church, we don't have anybody doing that. That at least not as effectively anymore, specifically for our kids.
And, and again, this isn't a call. When we're saying protect, this isn't a call to go out and get yourself a gun.
No.
This is a call. No. This is a call to look at some of the logical, crazy wokeness that's seeping into everyone's life, and we need to preserve and protect the values that the church produces and the values that lead to a healthy, genuine life.
Includes our sisters and our moms and our girlfriends and our wives and our daughters, because look, this world is preying on them too, and they need somebody to stand in the gap for them. I'm not saying they can't, they're not strong and powerful and all this stuff, but they need men to stop doing things like, pornography was one of the things you were reading about in that book of resolutions. We need to put the kibosh on that. That stuff needs to stop. And the only way that's going to happen is if we decide we want to preserve something good for the future.
Both of us being men here at the Rage Podcast, it's kind of hitting us in the heart. Because I see it. I see it in a lot of churches. I see it here. I see it at Walnut Grove as well. Even our small little church that we have. It's important that men recognize that they have a place in the church. It's important that you can kind of overcome
important to the church.
Yes,
it's going to be good for you too, but the church needs you.
The church needs you. And but I want to kind of almost have as the call here is just. Start with walking through the door, because so many men haven't walked through the door. I see, there's certain people here at Wayne Street and Walnut Grove who I know his husband's just sitting at home, or once the kid boys get a little bit older and then high school and everything, well, we're just not going to wake them up now or anything. But instilling the values that every one of us, I feel like in this kind of community and area we want, but we have lost the ability to work for.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that we men need to ask ourselves is, what do I want to see preserved? What do I want the next generation to have? If the church is one of those things, you got to support it now so that these organizations can continue to be strong and meaningful, not only currently, but 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years from now. We can't do that by proxy, and we cannot do it from afar.
Yep.
So, all right, you men out there, get to work. There's plenty of work out there for you to do, and we here at the Rage Podcast, we would like to see you step up to the plate.
Interested in men's ministry here at Wayne Street? Contact Parker Miley.
Yep. All right, everybody, have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Let me fix my balding hair.
Pretty soon you and I both be wearing hats in the Rage Podcast.